today in the A to Z of iconography with INSTUCEN. And thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for following us. Thank you for increasing our follower numbers, and thank you for liking the lives that we've done so far. It's really nice, and it's very, very encouraging. So thank you very much. Today we've got D for Dharma. Now, I first came across the Hindu deity Dharma at a very young age when I was told that the different Pandavas from the from the Mahabharata were all fathered by different gods. And the eldest of these, Yudhishthira, was the son of Dharma, and therefore very often called Dharmaputra Yudhishthira. And I was very interested because I'd never heard of a deity called Dharma before. And when I inquired further, I was told that Dharma was none other than Yama. And that came as quite a bit of a jolt because Hinduism as it existed or as it exists today has a very negative connotation to everything that Yama is all about. Yama is a fearsome aspect. Yama is the god of death, is the god of the afterlife. And one would not have thought of Yama being the father of the eldest of the Pandavas. So my lifelong fascination for Yama continued thanks to this. On the right-hand side is a beautiful image of Yama. The first image that I saw, I was, I think, 21 years old, and I went to the St. Xavier's College on a field trip to Madhya Pradesh, and we went to Khajuraho, and was, if I remember right, in the Jain group of temples that we came across this image. And, you see a bearded image, and you see a palm leaf manuscript, and the first thing you say is, oh my God, this is Brahma, right? And then you realize there is only one head. There are these skulls. There is obviously a Khatwanga, a skull club, and then everything goes to hell right there, right? And it actually goes to hell. So Dharma is the god of justice. Dharma is justice. I've regularly had people say that they have a lot of problems with the word Dhamma or Dharma and what it means. To me, Dharma simply means justice. It is the closest English word that you can find. So it's not faith, it's not religion. It is essentially justice. And this is why it is an incredibly secular term. So one of the avatars or one of the rupas or one of the facets, depending on what you'd like to call it, of the god of death, Yama, is justice. And the stories of Yama are very interesting. The origin myths of Yama are very interesting. Yama is a god who goes back all the way to the Rig Veda, is often mentioned in the Rig Veda, and this makes him one of the oldest deities that we have in the Indian pantheon. So he is basically a Brahmanical Rig Vedic deity, who then is a later Vedic deity and continues to be a very important deity, albeit lesser importance than he used to have in modern Hinduism today. So one of the versions says that he was the first of the mortals along with his sister Yami. He was born directly of Brahma. And when it came time for the humans, the mortals to die, there was no one to show them the way to the afterlife. And this is the role that was given to Yama. He was to judge humans and then designate which part of the afterlife they were responsible to travel further to. And to do this, he was given immortality and godhood, but was denied heaven himself. His realm is the Yamaloka or the Naraka or the Yamapuri, as it's often described in different texts. The Rig Veda, of course, interestingly tells us that he was the son of the sun god Surya himself, as Nivasa. And this is a very interesting twist in the tale. So, of course, there are multiple myths, and there are subsequent Vishnu myths and Shaivite myths also of Yama's origin. So Yama has various different origins depending on where and when you read about him. He's also one of the Ashtadikapalas. He is the Dikapala of the guardian of the southern direction and is therefore very often also called Dakshinapati or the Lord of the South. Interestingly, this is also one of the names of Shiva. And herein again lies a very complex set of relationships between the different gods and the different roles that they play at different times. He is Dharma, he is justice. He is the one who judges your life. He is the one who judges your actions. He is the one who decides what is wrong and what is right. And this is why Yudhishthir is the son of Dharma. He always knows what is right. He is the one who decides which level of Naraka you belong to. And his iconography is very, very interesting. He is a dark-skinned man with a curly beard, always a short curly beard, very, very rarely a small, short, pointed beard. He always has fangs, mustachios, hair tightly pulled back, very often rolled up around his shoulders, as you see over here in curls, and very often curled over his head, very much like the jatas of Bhairava. So very easy to mistake Yama images for Bhairava images and vice versa. Sometimes he wears a tall mukuta, but that is less often than otherwise. Traditionally, he does not wear a mukuta unless you go down south. Though, of course, there are exceptions to the rule. He has usually 2 arms, 4 arms, or sometimes even more. But usually it is 4 arms, which is the most common number of arms that he has. You have to have in the hands of Yama the khatwanga or the club or the danda in the right hand, and in the left hand the pasa or the noose. This is the noose that he uses to fling at the various different individuals to collect their souls. And this is when Yama, who comes to you on your deathbed, flings the noose, captures your soul and takes it with him, and all that is left is a dry husk behind. He often also holds Trishula, and very, very often, and more often than not, he holds a palm leaf manuscript, as you see in this image, in the upper left hand. And these are, according to most scholars, the Dharma Sutras and the Dharma Shastras. The texts of justice, the texts of Dharma are the ones that are given to you by the Lord of Dharma himself, by Yama. So his Vahana, interestingly, is the buffalo. So it's a black buffalo, which is his Vahana, and it is normally a large male buffalo that is shown, very evident. And he's often shown with 4-eyed dogs. There are 2 4-eyed dogs born of the bitch of the gods, according to the Rig Veda. And these are his constant companions. And along with birds, they lure the soul towards Yamapuri and to the court of Yama. And it is then in the court of Yama that you are judged, and the designated level in Naraka is where you are sent. This is very interesting because even though there isn't an iconography as such, the Avasta, which is the parallel text to the Rig Veda, also has a deity called Yama, who is also the son of the sun and who is also the first amongst mortals. And Yama also has 2 4-eyed dogs, showing you the close relationship between the Avastans and the Rigvedic peoples. So there are numerous images of Yama that we have. And usually, as I said, he's shown as a Dikapala today on the outsides of temples. You see him on the left-hand side in a standing image, typically from northwestern India. And you see him holding a Katwanga in one hand. And you see the buffalo on the bottom left-hand side, his left-hand side, our right-hand side. You see a seated image of him, and you see once again the fangs and the beard, which you don't see on the left-hand side, interestingly. You see a very youthful-looking Yama. People have contested as to whether it's Yama or not, but with that buffalo down there, it cannot be anything else. Here you have a rare 2-armed Yama in the center, shown seated upon the buffalo, and the pasa is very, very clear, the noose in his left hand, the Katwanga is very clear in his right hand. The various deities are around him, and he's shown smiling, grinning with his fangs jutting out, and a beautiful mukuta on his head, a Yagnopavita, etc., etc. On the right-hand side is an Orison, if I'm not wrong, image of Yama, if I remember right. And there is Yama with a skull club, again with a Katwanga in his right hand, noose in his left hand, again a 2-armed image. And you see the buffalo endearingly looking up from below. So it's always a very benign looking buffalo in most of the sculptures, and that is what is very interesting. On the right-hand side, what is very interesting is that the buffalo has a very, very clear saddle upon it for riding. And much to my surprise, I found that in large parts of rural India, Buffaloes are regularly ridden back from the fields, and they're usually almost exclusively male buffaloes that are ridden back. Very commonly seen in painting all over southern India, a very important deity in southern India, and shown usually with attendants. You see the beautiful renditions over here, bejeweled in different ways. As I said, holding a trishula in one hand along with the club. And of course, in this case, two open hands with just a club and a fasa. You rarely see the skull club in these paintings and these renditions that you see in southern India. This is my favorite story, since this is how I was introduced to Dharma / Yama. And this is the story of the Pandavas en route to heaven. And as they go towards heaven, they are joined by this dog that you see in the bottom left, on the left-hand side picture. And one by one, they fall on their way to heaven. Draupadi falls first, the brothers one by one later, till in the end, reaching towards the gates of heaven, to the top of the peak, Yudhishthira stands alone with this dog, and the gods come to welcome him home. And the gods say, come, get into the chariot. And he says, yes, but I want my faithful companion, the only one who has walked all the way up with me, to come with me. And the gods say, no. And he's like, what do you mean by no? This has been my most faithful companion when all others fell by the way. He is more important than anybody else. And if he cannot go to heaven, I cannot. And that's when the dog reveals himself as Yama, his father, who has walked with him as Dharma, has walked with him all the way up with his son, and tells him that he cannot enter heaven. And Yudhishthira continues on his way. And of course, then the story becomes much more interesting and much more melodramatic. But herein lies the rub. And herein lies a lot of unsaid things. You see, the only reason that Yudhishthira reaches the top and actually goes to heaven is because he is the son of death. And nobody could kill the son of death, especially when death walked with him. There are some beautiful iconographies of Yama, in which Yama is the part player, and beautiful legends. This is also made into a number of beautiful bronze images in southern India. This is the legend of Markandeya, son of Brikandu Rishi and Marudmati. Markandeya was born of a boon, and when this boon was given to Brikandu, who prayed for a son, he was asked whether he would like a son who would live a short life but be incredibly brilliant, or be an idiot and live a long life. Brikandu, of course, chose a son who would live a short life but be very brilliant. The legend then goes on to tell us that he was a great bhakt of Shiva, and when the time came for him to die, he embraced the Shivling and he embraced the Lord. And when Yama came to take him, the Lord himself appeared and shooed Yama away, and made it very clear to Yama that, this one is mine, not yours. Markandeya, of course, a brilliant rishi, according to legend, goes on to write the Martindale Purana, one of the most important Puranas because it incorporates the Devi Mahatmya, probably the most important Shakta cult text that we have amongst all the ancient texts of India. And therefore, this iconography of Markandeya as a young boy clutching a shivling from which rises Shiva himself, and Yama, immediately giving obeisance to Mahadeva, is a very, very important part of the iconographic renditions that we see. This is perhaps one of my best images, my favorite images. I'm very, very partial to the art of Anirudh Sainath. And this is an image of Nachiketa and the legend of Nachiketa. And the legend of Nachiketa is very, very interesting. Nachiketa's father's a bit of a cheat and has been giving only old and not very good health cows in sacrifices. Nachiketa is quite upset by this and tells his father, I am also one of your belongings. When will you sacrifice me? And to which god will you sacrifice me? And when he keeps persisting in anger, his father says, I'll sacrifice you to the god of death, to Yama himself. Nachiketa then, of course, promptly being a young kid, walks to the halls of Yama to find that Yama is not there, and waits without food and drink for 3 days and 3 nights, waiting for Yama to come. Yama, when he arrives, is quite upset that, oops, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you're a Brahmin. I've done you ill by having you wait for 3 days and 3 nights without food or water. I give you 3 wishes. You choose what you want. So, of course, Nachiketa wishes for his father and him to be well when he goes back home, which is a very interesting way of saying that he will be let to go back home from the halls of death himself, and so on. But it is the 3rd wish that he makes that is the most interesting. He asks Yama what happens to the soul after it leaves the body. And Yama says, ask me anything else, but not that. For even the gods are denied this knowledge. And it is Nachiketa who insists that Yama has offered him 3 boons, and this is the boon that he craves, to know what happens to the Atman after death. And finally, Yama sits down and explains to Nachiketa the story of how the Atman becomes one with the Brahman. And this is why we know truly how every single Atman goes to make up the Brahman and becomes one with the universe in the end. So this again is a very interesting interplay. It's a very powerful image over here, telling you that the image of Yama continues to be an image that is brought up again and again. And the legends of Yama and the way Yama is represented are very, very important to Indic thought. But Yama goes far beyond just typical traditional Hindu Brahmanical religious leanings. Yama is also a very, very important deity according to the Buddhist traditions. He is Dhammapala, and he is not just the god of death, but he is also the guardian of spiritual practice. He is also, very importantly, the enlightened protector of Buddhism itself. He's one of the 3 great protectors of Buddhism, and he ensures that Buddhism is protected from all evil. And this very important character in Tibetan Buddhism and later Buddhism that emerges, which you see in this beautiful bronze on the left-hand side, a many-armed Yama with many legs sitting on this beautiful buffalo, which is glowing. And you see him covered with multiple heads. And of course, if you note very closely, you still see the same noose in his hands, though the club has now been changed into a knife. And of course, there is the thunderbolt and various other attributes, because here he has multiple arms. From Tibet, Yama travels eastwards and becomes very, very important in Eastern Buddhism and in Chinese Buddhism. He's called Yen Lo Wang in China, and he is the king of heaven very often. Sorry, the king of hell, the god of death, the king of death, etc. He is also part of the 12 guardian devas, as they're called in Buddhism, and the Buddhists call him Enma in Japan. So even in Japan and China, and as far east as you can go, Yama is a character who comes up again and again and represents the god of death, the guardian of death, he who rules over hell, over Naraka, so long and so forth. So thank you very much for being with us today and doing D for Dharma. These are our different handles on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and in LinkedIn. We'd love to have you with us. And please press the bell icon and follow us. Please like this video that we've made. Please share it with your friends. And if there are any comments, please put them down. We'll be very, very happy to answer any of them. If there's anything that you want to share with us, please go and share with us. We're always willing to learn, and if we are wrong, we're always willing to acknowledge that we are. So thank you very much for being with us, and it's been incredibly kind. Tomorrow is the alphabet E, and it will be E for Ekavira. So thank you very much for watching the A to Z of iconography with INSTUCEN.